thanks for joining, everyone. I'm Waffle from Lodestar Finance. Um, we aim at being Arbitrum's Maxis money market. We'll be launching on the 8th of April, supporting DOPEX asset, Magic, but also PLV GLP. It's been a hell of a ride, but definitely very excited about this launch. And today we're receiving our friends from Pepe's game. And we're very excited about what they're building. And hey, man, please introduce yourself. Tell us your secret.
Before I introduce myself, let me just switch over to better Wi-Fi. Actually, no, I'll just use this one. It's all good. So yeah, quick introduction about myself. My name is Jiraiya. Been a Forex trader for the last 6 years. I did a degree in biology and business management at Imperial College London. Over the last year, kind of worked in the kind of KOL influencer space, and then kind of switched more into the builder side of things this year. So alongside running Pepe's game, we also run like a full stack Web3 agency that is going to be coming out relatively soon. So yeah, in Pepe's game, I work mainly as that kind of the marketing, business development, and kind of strategy side of things. And yeah, I'm one out of 6 team members. So we have Mel, who I think is also on the call. She is the head of branding, design, UX, UI, and yeah, she's got a few people working alongside her on the design front. So all the graphics, all the infographics, all the cool tweets that you see of images is all pretty much been done by her with some support from our friend Midjourney. I also have Adam as well, who's basically done all of our coding. Right, he's got an extensive team working underneath him as well. So yeah, alongside that, we have like three to five kind of advisors as well that support us on various different fronts, content, community management, and whatnot. So yeah, huge shout out to those guys, because without them, I mean, yeah, it would be very, very difficult to kind of get to where we are right now. So big props to everyone involved.
Sweet, man. So you guys, what do you do, guys, at Pepe's game? What's the main D app, and what are the specificities of it? How would you describe your protocol?
Yeah, so the easiest way to describe it would be gamified binary options. So most of us that have been on Arbitrum for quite a period of time, you'd probably be familiar with a protocol called Buffer Finance, right? So they kind of provide binary option positions, like kind of it's like a one way, I guess, in which you can kind of interact in the markets and to engage with it and to potentially turn over a profit, right? With Pepe's game, it's kind of draws inspiration from that, in the sense that the positions are binary option positions, but it's simplified and dumbed down a little bit. Yeah, it's basically simplified and dumbed down, right? So it kind of features a traditional slot machine, right? So you can like pull a lever, right? And then there's like 3 kind of wheels inside the middle. And instead of it, spinning and pop and, giving like bananas and oranges or whatever, right? It basically spits out 3 outputs, right? Or 3 parameters. So the first wheel determines the asset that you're trading. So it could be Bitcoin or Ethereum. We're thinking, obviously we can integrate different assets. We can potentially look to integrate like Arbitrum or Avalanche or whatever as like kind of tradable assets. But the second wheel features the direction of the trade, so higher or lower, okay? And then the third wheel basically determines the duration of the trade, right? So one output that you could potentially get after you pull the lever and spin is it could be something like Bitcoin or Ethereum. Let's say Ethereum higher 30 seconds, right? And then once you draw that function, right, it will basically mark out like the price of Ethereum at that particular moment in time, right? So let's assume Ethereum right now is at $2,000, right? And let's say in 30 seconds later, Ethereum is now $2,000.10 or $2,000.01, right? Because it appreciated in value relative to the opening price or the the mark price, right, the entry price. It meant that obviously it went higher, right? Therefore, you would get a return on that, and that return would be 80%, right? So yeah, that would be a very kind of high level way of explaining the game. It's gamified binary option positions, and if you get the direction correct within the duration, then you get paid out 80% of whatever you wager.
Super sweet. So you have like some kind of first part, which is gambling, depending on what position you're going to take, and then whatever is happening as a binary option, correct?
Exactly. I mean, yeah, in a sense, is gambling, right? Because like obviously you don't. The way I define gambling personally is that there is like, let's say, a 50-50 outcome, right, of
Hmm.
either event occurring, right? 50% of you winning, 50% of you losing. I would differentiate that from like kind of traditional trading, where you can have like an edge in a sense that, it might be a 70% chance of you winning versus 30% chance of you losing, right?
Hmm.
So that's how I would kind of classify the kind of two distinguishments.
And is this built on top of another protocol, or are you guys managing the liquidity and acting as a counterparty? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's all built basically from scratch. Everything
Amazing.
from the design, the code, none of it is forked. I'd say it's the first protocol that has done something like this, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, I don't know. There's like hundreds of thousands of protocols, right? So I don't know if it's actually the first, but in terms of it being kind of like mainstream and popular, I'd say we're probably the first.
Hmm.
So everything is built from the scratch up. And in terms of like the counterparty liquidity, that's all kind of done in house. So we have like almost like a GLP equivalent, right? So just like GMX has,
Hmm.
traders trading as GLP, our traders, the trades are kind of pitted against PLP, which is like Pepe's liquidity pool, right? So yeah.
Sweet. And do we know how that PLP is going to be constituted? Could you give us some alpha on that? Or because definitely myself as a farmer and intensive liquidity provider, I'm very much enthusiastic about all of these new ERC 46 26 volts. So could you give us some
Yeah,
details on that?
yeah. So there's not really too much alpha on this particular element, right? Mainly because it's quite simple, right? So it's basically like a GLP kind of index vault in the sense that it acts as a counterparty, right, to other kind of trades and whatnot. But it's all constituted only in USDC, right? So USDC basically acts as the counterparty.
Okay.
So for example, let's say, you put a $10 wager, right? If you win, right, it would come out of that pool. If you were to lose, then that $10 would go into that pool, right? And obviously there is that kind of difference between 80% payout and 100% loss, right?
Hmm.
And that is what gives obviously the house a small edge, right?
Sweet. Super sweet. Definitely very excited about this. I'm sure it could be also integrated in many ways in other protocols.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but I believe you announced your pre-sale a few days ago.
Yes,
Would
sir.
would you like us?
Yes,
Would you
sir.
like to run us through the process? Because it's a very interesting way of raising funds. Even myself, I was reading through that thread and I was like, oh, okay, that's innovative. I like it. So please, floor is yours.
Yeah.
Let us know.
All right. So, very high level. It's a little bit more difficult for me to explain without kind of like visual aid, but I'll do my best, right? The idea behind the public pre-sale was actually inspired by two pretty prominent protocols. One of them is JPEG, which is like kind of the NFT file lending platform, right? That's kind of backed by Tetranode. And the other one being Plutus DAO. It was also kind of draws inspiration from there as well. So how it basically works is that we're basically selling 20% or we're offering 20% of our supply for this public round. Okay. And it's split into 10 different tiers. And these tiers are staggered in valuation, right? So I believe it starts at 10 mil valuation and then it incrementally increases in 2 mil valuation, like 2 mil, 2 mil, 2 mil, 2 mil, right? Therefore, the value of the peg token becomes higher over time, obviously,
Hmm.
right? So there is that kind of incentive for people to come in and kind of participate as early as possible, because obviously, you get a you get a lower token price,
Hmm.
right? So it starts at 50 cents per token, and then I believe it goes to 60 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents, and it caps off at $1. I think it's $1.40. Don't quote me on that. I don't have the numbers in front of me right
Hmm.
now, right?
Of course.
But it caps off basically, right?
Hmm.
And it's denominated in such a way so that with every kind of level, every round, right, we're accepting 75% of deposits in USDC and 25% of the deposits in PLS, which is the native governance token for Plutus DAO,
Hmm.
right? So in the first round, we're looking like in the first level, right? At 10 valuation, we'd be looking to raise around about $400,000. $300,000 of that should ideally be in USDC, and $100,000 of that should be ideally in PLS, right? So we're looking for them to basically kind of balance it out, right? And then this kind of carries out throughout all 10 levels with, you know, slightly more, $40,000 more, right, to open each level, right? So there is that incentive for people to come in early. And then the question that we always get asked is, you know, okay, why would I, you know, want to participate at a higher price, right? If I know that a bunch of people have got in at a lower price, right? And this is where a little bit of thinking, a little bit of critical thinking kind of comes in, right? And kind of understanding the game theory behind it. So on top of this kind of staggered tiered mechanic, right, we also have one airdrop mechanic, right? And how it basically works, again, this is inspired by Plutus, right, and JPEG, is that for the top 100 contributors in terms of USDC, right, or USD, sorry, USD denomination, right, the top 100 contributors would actually be airdropped 0.75% of the total token supply, right? So the phenomenon that you might encounter is that, let's say you are Waffle, and let's say you decide to participate in door number 1, right, where the value of each token is, let's say, 50 cents, and let's say you deposit, hypothetically, let's say $10,000, okay? Then, you know, chances are you'd probably end up within the top 100 contributors, right? But over the time of this public round, right, let's say we get to door 10, right, and the value of each token is now $1.40, right? You might potentially be knocked out of the top 100, right? Meaning that, you know, you wouldn't qualify for that airdrop. But let's say you could theoretically be, let's say, rank, I don't know, 120, for example, okay? And then you can look at it and be like, okay, if I deposit $600 more, I'm going to end up within the top 100, right? And if you do the calculation, right, and you calculate the value of the airdrop, right, at max valuation, it would actually go to around, give or take, around about $2,000, right? So in essence, right, it's a plus EV move of $1,400, right? You're adding an extra $500 or $600, right? And you're gaining $2,000 in terms of the value of the airdrop, right? So that is an incentive for people to actually participate in the later levels, right? Now, obviously, this is a phenomenon explained with just one individual, right? But if you have, let's say, you know, hundreds of individuals that are also thinking the same thing, right, then you can kind of see how it, you know, how the dynamic plays out a little bit, right?
Yeah, everyone's fighting for the top 100.
Exactly, right? Because the value of the airdrop would actually increase as the number of doors open, right? So at door 1, it might be worth, I don't know, let's say like $1,000. At door 10, it would be worth, let's say, $2,000, right? So yeah, you got to kind of think about it strategically to see and play the game, right? So this is kind of like the first, I guess, version of Pepe's game, right? Like the public pre-sale in itself, the public round is a game. Yeah.
Amazing. I really like it. I find it innovative. And again, I think this industry is all about game theory, and a lot of people tend to forget it. And you guys integrating this on your pre-sale is definitely makes me feel very bullish on Pepe's game on a personal level. This is Waffle Talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad.
But when you said during the pre-sale, you'll be people can pay in USDC or in PLS asset. Is this part of your strategy of building the PEG token around PLS stacking?
Yeah. So one thing, or one objective of this pre-sale, and also of like kind of our daily operations, is to actually build a deep position in PLS, right? And the question that we often get asked is, you know, doesn't that make you kind of very reliant on Plutus, right? And the answer is like very, you know, simply is no, right? Like even if Plutus was to go to $1 million or if it was to go to zero, right? Like Pepe's game can still function as a game, right? Regardless of, you know, how PLS performs, right? But one of the reasons why we want to build, you know, a deep position within Plutus is because they basically hold, as I'm sure you know, right? They hold a lot of governance power over some of the top Arbitrum protocols, right? Like GMX, Sperax, Jones DAO, and Dopex, and obviously most recently Arbitrum and Radiant, right? So they've been gathering a lot of these governance tokens, right? And the question is, it's like, what is the value of this governance, right? Although it might not be immediately obvious to people right now, right? Because the governance isn't really that valuable for all of these protocols just at this particular moment in time. In future, right, as Dopex migrates into their V2, as Radiant starts kind of popping off, right? Well, it's already started popping off, but it's going to pop off even more most likely, right? And as GMX continues to develop, and as Dow Jones begins to develop, and SpareX as well, the value of this governance, in my opinion, is going to be extremely valuable, right? Because all of these assets are productive assets. They're not just like like uni, for example, where you just kind of hold it and the only thing it does is it allows you to vote, right? Like these are productive assets, so it doesn't just allow voting, but it allows you to generate income through it, right? So yeah, we do hope to accumulate as much PLS as possible.
Definitely makes sense, and for sure, Plutus like being the governors over Arbitrum, definitely diversifying nowadays treasury for a DeFi protocol makes sense, and if you're diversifying it into such productive assets, which has underlying assets which are also productive, definitely a good move. So yeah, I really like what you guys have been building around all this.
The way I see it, is that when you're when you're accumulating Plutus or when you're buying Plutus, right, like you're really kind of betting on Arbitrum as a whole, right? Because the governance tokens that they've accumulated, they're not just like, $1 or $2 million market cap shitcoins, right? Yeah. Like all of these guys represent, some of the top protocols on Arbitrum, right? So, the chances of Plutus failing, in my opinion, it's relatively low, right? Because you're basically you're betting on the fact that all of these, giant established protocols are also going to fail. And, I'm sure you've probably been speaking to the team, or you've seen, some of their Twitter posts, and you can see that, this bear market is not affecting them. The treasury is very, very healthy. They've got a huge runway. Yep. And the most important thing is that all of these teams are building and they are shipping, right? And as in any business, right, you really want to back the people that don't back down at the face of adversity, right? You want to back the people that look at adversity as an opportunity to overcome, right?
Yep.
So
I myself, when I joined Arbitrum at the very beginning, right after the UST fall, so at the beginning of the bear market, right, I mainly came into the Plutus community and started growing on Arbitrum through the Plutus community. And like you said, they've been gathering governance tokens, which are the pillars of this ecosystem. So in the end, you become a key to holding the whole house together, right? So
exactly.
So on the long term, absolutely very bullish on PLS, especially now that more and more, like you have the V2, but then we'll be having the DOPEX governance going on, going live. It's going to get very, very productive, and it's going to print, I believe, into the treasury and then to the PLS holders also. And if a protocol manage like yourself to build a treasury with PLS, then Godspeed, right?
100%.
Sweet, Jiraiya. Anything you would like to add? Any alpha for us? When could we expect the launch of the protocol? What partnerships with other protocols you're working on? Please let us know what you should know before your launch, actually, in your pre-sale. And I'm sure many of those listening will be checking out your Twitter account, and you'll be finding a thread about the pre-sale for Pepe Escape. But please, Jiraiya, floor is yours.
Yeah, so there's a few bits of alpha that we can obviously share, right? Like, one of the main questions that we've been asked, and a lot of people still don't see like the full picture, right, is why are we accumulating PLS, right? Why have we made it such a big focus, right? That's the question in everyone's mind. Now, the most immediate and obvious answer, right, is on top of the ones that I've already given, right, is that, when they're going to their V2, there are going to be, a series of bribes. It's going to be more revenue being generated, et cetera, right? And obviously all of this can be funneled back to our token holders, right? But one thing that people still haven't uncovered or kind of put together, right, is the fact that we're actually looking to accumulate this ahead into their V2, right? So I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with how their V2 works, right? But the idea behind it is this, right? Like this is a very kind of high level overview. If you guys want to, dig in even deeper, then obviously, you go to the Discord, go to relevant documentation, right? But the very high level overview is this. Right now, there are various assets called PLS assets, right? So let's say PLS SPA, for example, okay? Right now, okay, it's producing an APR or APY of around about 50, 60%, right? Now, going into their V2, there's going to be something called a Plutus boost, right? So how this works is that you can basically get a maximum of a 2.5x multiplier, I think, on the yield that these PLS assets actually generate, right? But in order for you to earn the maximum yield on these PLS assets, right, you need to have a proportional amount of PLS that is actually that you need locked, basically, right? So the question is every PLS asset holder necessarily going to be exposed to PLS? And do they want to be exposed to PLS, right? The majority of them, I'd say, they have some exposure, right? Because obviously just holding these PLS assets, it generates some, Plutus emissions, right? But not everyone is going to have like a substantial holding of PLS. And more importantly, not everyone's going to want to necessarily have that exposure, right? Maybe it's just not part of your portfolio, all right? So what we can do going into the V2 is that we, as Pepe's game, right, we're going to have, accumulated a substantial amount of PLS. What we can do is we can actually create sub-vaults allowing you to stake your PLS assets to earn a boosted yield without having any exposure to PLS itself, right? And the question is, how's that possible, right? How is that possible? Very simply put, right, is because we are going to be the ones doing the staking for you, right? We're going to be max locking, going to be max staking, right? All of the PLS that, we accumulate through the pre-sale, through, the fees generated, through all these various different avenues, right? Through a percentage of the, money that we raise through the public round as well, right? We're going to arrange an OTC deal with Plutus. So we're going to be accumulating a bunch of Plutus. We're going to be max locking it, max staking it, right? And then we're going to create sub-vaults, right, where you can deposit your PLS assets and earn this additional yield off your PLS assets without having any exposure to PLS whatsoever, right?
Nice.
And obviously, with all of these things, right, like we're going to take obviously a small percentage as like a performance fee, right? We might be boosting your yield from, let's say, I don't know, that hypothetical numbers, right? So nothing solidified, but hypothetically, we could boost your yield from, let's say, 30% all the way up to 75%, right? And if we just take, let's say, a 10% cut of that, right, you're still getting an additional 35%, and we're keeping the 10%, right? And obviously, that 10%, right, can be used to reward token holders, right? So this is one of the many ways in which we envision kind of building around the treasury that we've accumulated.
You guys would become an aggregator of an aggregator, right?
Yeah, you can think of it like that. I'd say that the relationship between us and Plutus would be somewhat comparable to Redacted Butterfly and Convex, yes, right, on some level. Because obviously, Redacted has built like the various different features around Convex, mm-hmm, right? Auto compounding, auto delegation, right? All of these features. Well, I don't want to promise too much, right? But some of these features may or may not be available through us as well.
Sweet. And from my side, from like a money market perspective, we've always been interested into PLS assets as collaterals, because imagine being able to use PLS DPX as a collateral while it's generating yield could be huge. But we've been facing that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not an issue we've been facing because we didn't yet get to work, and it will be done after launch next week. But we're facing that liquidity issue. How easy would it be to liquidate such an asset when it's as a collateral and it needs to get liquidated? My question would be, are you guys going to build some kind of vault that would have all the different PLS assets as underlying, or what's the structure of what you guys are building?
Yeah, so in terms of like the specific architecture of these vaults, it's still kind of being finalized, right? We are actually in talks directly with the team over at Plutus, the developers and whatnot, And right now they're just kind of in the stage of getting the final contracts audited and whatnot. And then after all of that has been finalized, right, then we can architect our own vault. So in terms of specifics around that, don't have too much to share on that right now. But what I can say is that when it's ready and going, we'll definitely shoot you an inbox, and
Please.
we can talk more about it then.
Yes, please. Because like how I would envision it from a non-dev perspective, it would be a GLP-like vault with some kind of ratio between the different PLS assets staked inside, so they're generating the PLS asset yield. And yeah, you can like mint and burn and get yourself some like PLS index. And then it would be way easier to integrate on a money market just like ours, compared to the asset by itself.
Yeah, 100%. I think honestly, it's a great idea, right? I think one of the most beautiful things about Arbitrum is like how composable everything is, and how every protocol wants to kind of collaborate with another protocol on some kind of level. And I think like you obviously have that kind of interest, building around Plutus, just like we do. Obviously, you have that PLV GLP vault, which is one of the first of its kind at the time, right? And yeah, I think we can obviously do something around the kind of PLS asset vaults as well that we build, offering degens the opportunity to collateralize their their assets, right, and to maybe take a levered position on it to obtain even more yield. I think is definitely very, very interesting, and those with a higher risk appetite would definitely have a level of appreciation for that, for sure.
Of course, and I would even imagine like a delta neutral position on DPX. You can deposit the index, borrow some DPX, and short it inside, and then you're holding a delta neutral position. That's also one of the partnerships you also announced a few days ago with Factor. Now, are you aware of Factor?
No, yeah, I'm aware of Factor DAO. Actually, I represent them as well. I'm the kind of ambassador for them. But yeah, I mean, do tell me more about the Factor DAO and Lodestar partnership.
Yeah, actually,
I didn't actually read too much into it.
Actually, Factor DAO allow users to build their custom strategies into a vault. So, like, you can borrow, short, and they will be integrating Lodestar Finance. And the idea behind it would be setting up a delta neutral PLV GLP vault. That would be very easy for a user to just deposit USDC, and the vault by itself would mint GLP, deposit PLV GLP, and then at the same moment on Lodestar Finance, it's automatic. It would borrow Bitcoin and ETH at the GLP ratio and short it into the PLV GLP, and you're holding a delta neutral position while it's printing the GLP yield.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think if you can automate that all, to be honest with you, I think it'd definitely be something that interests a lot of people. I think one of the difficult things right now is just like, if you want to do it yourself, it's a very manual process that you have to automatically go back and rebalance, periodically, right? Mm-hmm. But this can all be automated through your partnership with Factor DAO, I think. Yeah, so it's obviously very synergistic, makes a lot of sense, and it saves everyone time, convenience, effort. So yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations on your partnership.
Thanks a lot. So I imagine with any kind of index, this would be doable, and hence why I wanted to mention it regarding the DPX. Holding a delta neutral position on DPX could be very interesting because in parallel, it's been printing on a very regular basis. Like the yield on DPX has been very juicy, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd say, pretty positively that it's likely to continue its upward trajectory going into the V2.
The V2, so, yeah. Absolutely. Sweet, Jiraiya. Listen, it was definitely a great talk. Would you like to give us one last time when your pre-sale is happening and when could we expect your launch?
Yeah, so our pre-sale is happening on the 4th of April at 12 p.m. UTC. Okay, it's going to be happening on our own customized launchpad. So not Camelot DEX. I know that was circulating around in our Discord saying that we're launching through Camelot. That is not true. We've built our own launchpad, our own mechanics. Everything has been built from scratch, right from the bottom up. So yeah, we're gonna send out the link to that. On the 4th of April, 12 p.m. UTC, right? So if you want to participate, then obviously get your USDC ready, get your PLS ready, right? And if you have any questions, feel free, hop over into our Discord and just shoot over the questions, right?
Thanks, Jiraya. And from our side, Lodestar Finance will be launching on the 8th of April. Likewise, feel free to join our Discord if you have any questions. Jiraya, it was great to have you during this AMA. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for hosting us.
And yeah, see you around. And thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Be safe.